Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am excited to share my conversation today with Ursula Garrett. She has owned and operated her CPA firm for 20 years. She offers business advisory and tax services. And that brings us to her newest business venture, which is called Agenda E, which is designed to help entrepreneurs build empires, one asset at the time, definitely leveraging her 20 plus years in business development. Welcome to the show today, Ursula.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. So you have been in the world of taxes, the very exciting world of taxes for over 20 years. But I suspect you have done other things throughout your career. So let's talk about those. Take us back. Tell us more about who you are, and then we'll get to the point of launching your business and what you do and all that good stuff.
Okay, great. Well, so I am, as someone once called me, a country bumpkin. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, and I started college, and it just got married very young and started going to college, and it just didn't work out so well. So I did a little traveling. I joined the military. So I was in the Army for a while, and then I moved to New York City, where I worked on Wall Street for a little while, and that was very interesting. I was actually there when the stock market crashed in 1987. And so
okay, wait. I want to back up. How'd you go from the Army to Wall Street? I think we're skipping a few points in this story here. Yes.
Well, when I got out of the Army, I was in Pennsylvania, and my grandmother lived in New York City, so it was just a 2-3 hour drive. So I drove up to Brooklyn to visit my grandmother, and I ended up staying, and I got a job on Wall Street.
Okay.
And so I lived in Brooklyn, and I worked on Wall Street back in the late 80s.
Okay. And what was your role on Wall Street? What were you doing?
I worked for a securities investment firm, and I did administrative work.
Okay. Got it. Awesome. And you went through the crash of 97, was it? Did
87.
87. Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah. 87. All right. So that must have been a wild ride. Talk about that.
It was. So there were a lot of things going on at that point. The market crashed, and then there were power fluctuations. I worked on the 31st floor, and the power went out once, and I had to go down 31 flights of stairs to a fitness nut. That may not seem like much, but my legs felt like rubber when I got down to the end. And all of this seemed to be happening at the same time.
Yes. So Wall Street, how long were you there?
A year.
Okay.
That was about as long as I could take it. For me, New York City, it was dirty snow.
Okay, I've never heard it called that. That's interesting.
One winter, dirty snow. I always say dog crap on snow. I couldn't take it. That's what did me in.
Okay. And where to next?
And so I went back home to South Carolina to regroup and, just kind of checked out a few cities in the South. I spent a little time in Atlanta, Columbia, but none of them were right for me. So I came out to visit a friend in California. And this was in January 1990. So in January of 2020, we'll make 30 years that I've been living in California. I came out here sort of on vacation. I was in between semesters, in between jobs. And here we are almost 30 years later, and I'm still here.
It's a hard place to leave, that is for sure.
Yes.
So what did you do when you landed here in California?
So I got here to California, got married, finished college, had kids, not necessarily in that order. Uh, and I worked for a CPA firm, but my ultimate goal was always to have my own business. So
Mm.
shortly after I got my CPA license, I threw up my sign and opened my doors.
Okay, so you just ran out and said, "I'm out of here. I'm doing my own thing. See ya."
Pretty much.
Okay, all right. Why? I mean, was it you said you had always wanted to own your own business? Was there something there at that firm you were working with that was, holding you back, or was it just like, this is my time, I'm going for it?
You know what? I needed the experience to be able to get my CPA license, and once I got my CPA license, then there was nothing holding me back. Um, I've never been able to stay at a job working for other people for long. In all honesty, I just did not do well working for others. Some people don't play well with others. I don't work well for others.
I can empathize with that. So very understandable. Well, let's talk about the early years of your business. What were you focused on? Were you in the Inland Empire at the time, which is where you are currently?
Yes. Well, I started with my home office, and I would contract out with other CPA firms to supplement my income until I built up my practice. And then I met someone in a networking group that happened to be selling a tax practice. So I bought her tax practice.
Mm,
And that was the beginning of me having an office outside of my home.
fantastic. And how long ago was that?
And so that happened about 7, 8 months after I started my home office. So it was less than a year after
Okay.
I started my home office. I really didn't work out of my home for very long.
Hmm.
The
Yep.
opportunity just came up at the right time. And so I focused more on individual taxes and small companies
Hmm.
because that's what I love working with, the small businesses, people that are just starting out. And can you believe it, 20 years later, that's still my passion, it's still my focus, working with the small businesses, except for now I have 20 years more of experience to help those small businesses.
Yeah, it's so interesting. As a small business owner, and most of our listeners are small business owners or aspiring business owners. Sometimes we call them wantrepreneurs. Um, this world of finance and taxes, and all of this is foreign to a lot of us, right? We haven't had to do tax planning related to our business, as complicated by the fact that as business owners, we're also people and we have taxes there as well. And those two
Mhm.
tie together very much, right?
Oh,
They're not
absolutely.
totally separate. So one informs the other as far as your tax picture.
Mhm.
Um, I'm sure you see people, both business owners and not, kind of bury their head in the sand, so to speak, as it relates to taxes. One of those things that not everybody loves to talk about at the cocktail party. So,
I know.
um, so how do you inspire your clients to get excited about taxes and maybe tax planning?
So how do I make taxes exciting? You know, one of the things that I do, and I try to educate my clients at least enough so they understand what's going on, is when I point out some of the good things about taxes and why they want to know, why they want to care, that seems to make a difference.
Mm,
For instance, um, one of the new tax laws that just happened in California, where companies have to be very careful on how they pay contract labor
mhm,
and how they have contract labor classified.
mhm,
So one of the ways of making sure that you can avoid some of those issues is to have your contract labor form a business.
mm,
So when you start talking about forming new businesses, entrepreneurs tend to get excited. And when you start mentioning some of the benefits, hey, if you were to do something like this, the way the tax laws are written, you could really benefit or you can avoid some of the tax. And then, when you bring up some of the issues that small businesses face, then they become curious and they ask questions, and it becomes exciting when it directly impacts them. So if an issue is going to have a direct impact, obviously you care more about it. And when you care more, you're more interested in exactly how it works.
Yep,
There are
absolutely.
so
Makes
many tax laws, and
mm,
most people, most of the tax laws don't really affect them. So why should they bother to learn?
mm,
Why should they
yep.
care? But if you can show a small business owner why they should care, how it affects them, then they tend to become more interested.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to ask a question. I had this conversation with an attorney yesterday, and there's a lot of information out there about incorporating your business. And I know this straddles law as well, but
Huh?
you brought up this topic, made me think of this. So there's a lot of ads out there, information out there of incorporate your business in Delaware, or a state outside of where you reside. As folks here in California specifically, what's the deal with that, and is that something that somebody should be thinking about?
Possibly. So the deal with that is a lot of people want to incorporate in other states to try to avoid state taxes.
Mm,
Some of those states are more favorable. They have more favorable tax laws to businesses. However, that does not take away your obligation to the state in which you live and you operate your business.
mm,
So, for instance, for a while there was this big craze incorporate in Nevada to avoid paying California state taxes.
hmm,
That's not really how it works, and they had some schemes you could use to try to eliminate being caught per se, so
mm,
that you didn't have to pay. But basically, was committing tax fraud. But
mm,
a lot of workshops and people were pushing it. What it does, it it makes sense if you're incorporating in one of those states for uh, the right reasons. For instance, in Nevada, a lot of people that incorporate in Nevada for the right reason is because it makes it more difficult to pierce the corporate seal. If
hmm,
you're in a highly litigious field and people are always suing not just the corporation, but they're trying to come after the officers, if
mm,
you're incorporated in a state like Nevada, it makes it more difficult for them to find out who the officers of the corporation is, so that they can, try to personally sue those
okay,
officers.
okay,
That would be a good reason to incorporate in another state. To avoid your current state's taxes is not a good reason.
got it. Okay, yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception around that. And as somebody who operates in California, I know that, regardless of where you're incorporated, you get to pay here too. So,
Yes, you absolutely do. And on a side note, Nevada has changed their business licensing fees. I think it's like tripled. So
mm,
people used to go to Nevada from California to form their corporations, and they were losing all kinds of money by doing that. And so they increased their fees significantly. So Nevada doesn't seem such a good idea for those people trying to avoid California taxes.
got it. Makes sense. Yep. So, with that advice that you're giving your clients, you have a new venture called Agenda E. Let's talk about that. What is that, and
Yes.
who does it serve?
So I may have mentioned that I really like working with entrepreneurs. And I get a lot of my clients to come in and they want me to help them form a business. And we do, but they really don't have any idea how to run a business. They only know how to do what they know how to do, which is maybe repair cars or um, sell parts or whatever their specialty is. They really know how to do that well, but running a business, not so much.
Hmm.
Um, and so when those clients come in to see me, most of them don't want me telling them how to run the business. They want me to do it for them.
Hmm.
However, there's a large number of entrepreneurs that would love for somebody to tell them, how do I get my business set up so that I stand a really good chance of making it past the dreaded 5 years, where
Hmm.
80% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. you want to be one of those 20%, one of the 20% that makes it past the first 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I designed a training program to help entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, figure out where to start, what to do, and give them a better chance at making it past those first 5 years. So the whole point of Agenda E was to work with entrepreneurs and try to help them to create their empires. And, as an accountant, I understand the importance of assets. And for entrepreneurs, it's my opinion that one of the most important part of a successful business is having assets. And so that's what I work with entrepreneurs, is to not only create new assets, but also to protect the assets that they have, that they may not always recognize as an asset. They're, in the age of information, this technology-driven age, a majority of new business assets are intangible assets. And if you don't recognize that, then you probably don't value those assets. So I help entrepreneurs to not just recognize the assets, protect the assets, and build new assets that would make their business valuable, because, income follows assets, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Give us maybe a client example, Ursula, and what might be an asset that an entrepreneur might not realize is an asset, as you said.
Okay. So I have a client that has a wine touring business. We're down here near wine country, so that is big business here.
Yeah.
And this particular client was looking at valuing their business. And they thought their business was worth more than what the appraiser thought the business was worth. So this client
I've heard
came
that
to me.
before. Yes.
Exactly. So the client came to me and we kind of went over everything. And I go, well, what about your customer list? Well, we don't have a list. We have it all on papers. They had a paper file with all the names and all the information of all their prior customers, and they weren't using that.
Mm.
So one of the things I did was we had them to take all of those paper files and made one database.
Mm-hmm.
So now they had a database of all their clients over the last 15 years. Well, it hasn't been 15, I think it's been 13 years
Mm-hmm.
of them having their wine touring business. Well, that automatically caused their business to be worth $35,000 more than what it was valued at before they had the list.
Got it.
Then we had them to develop a marketing plan, a way to use that list to not only reach out to previous customers so they become repeat customers, but use it as a way to reach out to new customers and use it to get reviews. So they contacted some of their previous customers and had them to write reviews on social media, asked them to post pictures on their website. So all these things now are intangible assets that they could use to attract a higher price should they decide to sell their business or if they needed to get a loan. So probably some of the assets they never thought of. Again, additional assets were registering their name, even if they didn't have an account at different social media sites. They didn't have to use their Instagram account, but by registering their name under Instagram, somebody else couldn't use it. So if they did decide to sell, the new owners the buyers wouldn't think, well, we can't use that because somebody else has it. So you have to capture your name and register it across all media that you could think of. Social media, your name recognition, anywhere. You want to make sure that you own your name and your brand across all markets and all media.
Yeah. So much
So
to
those
think
are some
about.
of the assets.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense of just really locking up your brand, your system, your model, your, customer lists, all of that. I could see where a lot of businesses aren't thinking from that perspective. And then, of course, making sure your books are clean and maintained, up to date, paid all your
Absolutely.
taxes. Yeah,
That's the easy part.
I know. Well, for you, I know a lot of people that, again, kind of bury their head in the sand around that. I'm sure you get all kinds of calls and all kinds of busy towards the beginning of the year, and again in October as everybody files their extensions.
There you go. We have clients all over the world, and I got to be honest with you. I see more burying of the heads in the sand in the U.S. than anywhere else in the world. Almost any other country where I go,
Hmm.
you can talk to almost anybody on the streets, and they can give you a pretty good idea of how their tax system works.
Hmm.
And especially if it's somebody that's in business, but the consequences of having a failing business is also more severe in other countries than it is here. So,
That's a good point.
so they have lots of reason to make sure they understand what's going on in their business. And because sometimes it's a crime in some countries to file bankruptcy, whereas in the U.S.
Mm.
it isn't. Um, so you can
That's
actually end up with the tax benefit by filing bankruptcy and not going to jail. So the
yeah.
consequence for not knowing tax laws is not as severe here as it is in other countries. If you don't pay your taxes here, they put you on a payment plan. They work with you to get your taxes paid. Some countries, you don't pay your tax bills, you go to jail.
Hmm. Jeez, my goodness. Yeah, no, we have an office in Sweden, and we talk about that quite a bit. Just the differences in how businesses run, and even the perceptions. Here in the U.S., thanks to the world of technology, this idea of pivoting,
Hmm.
okay, that didn't work. I'm going to go try this, is just a regular part of business. But in other countries, that this idea of failing is just, it's so shameful, and having to start over or filing bankruptcy is such a big
Hmm.
deal. And I think, yeah, to your point, that makes a lot of sense. It would certainly make me stand up and pay more attention if I knew I was going to jail versus getting put on a payment plan. But
Yeah, and
very
we have a low barrier to entry for a lot of businesses. There are a lot of things you could do, a lot of ways you could start your own business with a very low cost. So that eliminates or severely limits a lot of the barriers to entry. Whereas in some countries, you have to jump through hoops to be able to start your
mm,
business. So it's much more difficult to just start a business. You can't just close the door on this side of the street um, and call yourself Garrett and Associates too, and open your doors on the others across the street. It just doesn't
yeah,
work like that.
yeah.
But here I could do that.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's interesting. Well, with that, Ursula, I want to talk about some of the exciting things you have on the horizon. The Agenda E platform that you're building. Anything more you want to share about that, or just other things that you're excited about in the upcoming year?
Oh, absolutely. So, with Agenda E, I'm actually finishing up the workbook that's going to go with that. And so it's going to be a workbook that's going to have step by step process on how to start your business. You don't really even have to think about it. And everything is going to be laid out in the workbook. And that's been really exciting. I have a couple of entrepreneurial daughters, so I've been having them to beta test everything to tell me if it's not the easy button, you have to tell me.
That's great.
So I'm beta testing it on millennials.
Okay. All right. That's great.
And that's really exciting. And trust me, when you give birth to them, they're very happy to give you all kinds of critique and tell you what you need to do better to make it better for them.
Yeah. Makes sense. Good, good. Well, with that, Ursula, what vehicles can people use to get in touch with you?
So the best way to reach me is to just hop on my landing page at ursulaisamazing.com. And when you get to that page, it'll give you access to all of my social media connections, my CPA Garrett webpage. You have access to links to actually purchase my book one of my books if you're interested. And it has some uh, backstory on me.
Fantastic.
So there's all kinds of stuff. If you want to know all the whys, wheres, and hows of Ursula, it's ursulasamazing.com.
Well, Ursula, you are amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.